in general, high level, the hardware market, we see it as the following. We see there's many different options out there, much more than used to. There's the biggest tech companies in the world, and we all know the names, are investing billions into virtual reality and augmented reality hardware. And let's just talk about virtual reality for now, because I feel that's a little more readily available, and it's more probably where most of the training software is geared for. The quality is only getting better. We're early days of similar to how the cell phones were, 15 years ago, smartphones, where they're only going to get faster, they're only going to have more power, the field of vision is only going to be stronger. The frame rates are only going to get faster. It's only going to get more real and more better with more memory, and the prices are going to come down. And so it's a great time to be on that innovative curve of to see with every 6 months, literally, there's new hardware player into the game or a new model to come in to be able to leverage for an enterprise. It is not, however, full interoperability. We're back to the early days, and oftentimes of certain software doesn't play nice on a particular hardware platform versus another. Some have gone after consumer markets, some have gone after more of the enterprise market, and there's a lot of questions that come up to that. So it can be very difficult to navigate, just the simple question of what hardware should I use? How do you guys tend to steer clients through those questions?
Yes. And I mean, that other than the cost question, what's this going to cost? Really, that is the next question. What hardware should I use? And what we generally try and do is say, listen, it actually does go back to your use case, right? Because unless you have a super high fidelity, a need for a super high fidelity environment, I mean, we want to have the strongest ROI possible for our customers. And so we recommend making sure as you go out there and look at hardware, headsets in virtual reality, that you do tie it back to the need that you have. And so you don't need to spend thousands of dollars if really what you need is some soft skills training, that doesn't require like a digital twin, a whole complicated environment or scenario or tons of steps and processes. You can use sort of the basic model that's out there, right? Again, we're trying to help people create that whole value chain. And so there's great options to your point, right? Those price points are going to continue to come down. Those headsets are stable, they're mature. You're going to get your money back out of whatever headset you purchase. But in general, I think that's sort of our approach. We just sort of say, look at your use case. Does it have any special requirements for frames per second or any of the other technology that's in the headset, right? And if not, then go ahead and as part of working with Immerse, we actually can make introductions to most of the major hardware manufacturers too, so that you can have a conversation directly with them and understand, their perspective and what might work best to make a decision.
It really comes down to how do you want to deploy it and to how many people. And often it comes down into your IT department and what their thoughts are around security and proprietary data. And so each of these individual platforms plays differently with different IT platforms. And so that's where your IT team is going to need to be involved in the decision and the evaluation. Hopefully you brought them in earlier, and some members of their team are on your demo team. But in terms of deployment, really you have to think about, is this going to be a localized installation? Is this going to be a VR lab, if you will, where 20 headsets will be set up in a common area where people can come in and take training whenever they want? Or is this something you're going to deploy individually, or you're going to deploy hundreds, even thousands of headsets at one time, which then the real hardware decision becomes around device management. So just like firms that manage fleets of laptops or manage fleets of mobile phones or computers, you're now into, how do I take a particular piece of training? How do I standardize it? How do I deploy it to 1,000 headsets when there's an update? How do I make sure they all update at the same time? And different hardware platforms have taken different steps, and there's certainly now MDM software that'll help work that for you. But there's all big piece of puzzle that needs to be considered.